to Hooked on Hebrew. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited that you're here. I want you to know that this is going to be a life-changing class. You are never going to look at your Bible quite the same as you will after you take these 6 weeks of you and I going through the Aleph Bet, which is what they call the Hebrew alphabet. So we have a lot to get through today. I want to warn you that this is probably the hardest class out of the 6 because your brain is going to be crazy. Everything is going to feel like it's going in a million wrong directions. But over time, you're going to see that the brain begins to function very much like the Jewish brain does, where they read from right to left. We read from left to right. So you see there's a switch in our brains that happens. So let's share the screen and let's get started with week 1 of Hooked on Hebrew. So I got my glasses on so I can see what's happening. We are going to unearth God's treasures that are only seen in Hebrew. So let's start with week 1. Now, most people say, Rebecca, how did you get started learning Hebrew? Well, here's my story. 16, 17 years ago now, Billy Graham was the spark that started me learning Hebrew. He was asked, what do you regret? What was your biggest regret? And he said, I never learned Hebrew. Well, I was blown away because right away I felt something drop inside of me that said, you're going to learn Hebrew. And so for a whole year, I didn't do any Bible studies with the women's ministry. All I did was begin to learn the Hebrew Aleph Bet. And then from there, I took classes. I met the teacher at Bethel Seminary. She gave me her curriculum, and I went through that with her. And that's how I got started with the Holy Tongue called HaKodesh Lashon. That's what they call the Hebrew language. So right after that God spoke to me that I was going to learn that, I had someone out on a walk, a Christian friend, meet me, and I said, oh, I haven't seen you in so long. And she gave me a hug and said, well, let me pray for you if you think God wants you to learn Hebrew. And I said, yeah. He said, just be a spark, Rebecca, and I'll fan it into a flame. So she prayed over me and walked away. Right then, a truck went by with Miss Sparky's Electric, and this picture was on it. And so that's where we get Sparky's Torah Time, or that's where my platform is on all these different platforms. So that's where it all began. I thought you would like to hear that fun story. So learning Hebrew, I believe, is for such a time as this, where God spoke to John, his parents, who are both high priests, by the way, the line of the high priests, both Zechariah and Elisheva, which is Elizabeth. He spoke to them and he said, this child that you're going to have will go before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers, the Hebrew people, to the children, the Gentiles, and then the Gentiles back to the Hebrew people. And this is what we're seeing for such a time as this in our culture. Churches are doing Passover. Churches are learning the feast. People want to learn the Holy Tongue. And this is for such a time as this, culturally and socially. Zechariah chapter 8 even said in the last days, it said, many people and nations will come to Jerusalem seeking the Lord, and they'll say in those days, every tongue shall take hold of a robe of a Jew, saying, let us, the nations, go with you, for we have heard God is with you. So this is prophetic, what we're seeing today in the churches. Did you know that Jesus was actually Jewish? And do you know that people don't believe that? Still today, he wasn't a blue-eyed Lutheran. That's what I always say, in the red robes of Rome. He was a Jew. He spoke Hebrew. He followed the Torah. He kept the feasts. He was the rabbi who came to teach us what God was like, God in the flesh. And so Jewish believers in Yeshua are called Messianic believers, or in the first century, they were called the Way. They followed the ways of their rabbi. So the Hebrew language, let's look at it. All the words in Hebrew have a three-letter root. It's called the verbal form. And so they take three letters. And let me give you an example. The word to speak, or the word for word, is dabar. We're going to read right to left. Then these three letters are expanded on to create other words. So it's like a family of words from every three-letter root. And this is how I'm going to teach you the language. You're going to learn the roots, the three-letter root words, and that's all you're going to learn is 22 letters plus their markings so that you know how to pronounce each letter. And those markings we're going to get to in just a minute. So let me hurry through this. Now, translations matter in the Bible. People sometimes like the paraphrased Bibles that are done casually and carelessly, but if translated correctly and carefully in the original languages, then you're going to see grammatical clues that you would never see in English. And that's why I always say it's such a joy and a privilege to know at least your letters. And then by the end of these 6 weeks, I'm going to give you resources so that you can continue this study on your own. So let me show you some of the words or examples of how different Hebrew can be to English. Let me take one word like teach in Hebrew. There's 6 words for the word teach. So if we carelessly just put teach in there, it could mean almost anything. In English, it just means to give you transfer of information. But in Hebrew, look at these 3 different words, zahar, yara, lamad. Each one is slightly different. To advise caution, to teach, to point out a direction. Lamad, to urge in a specific direction. And then there's even more. Yada, to know intimately, you learn through experience. Or shanan, to sharpen. And then to teach. Aleph means to show through example. So see all the different nuances to one word that in English just means one thing to us. Oh my goodness. Another unique thing about Hebrew is that Jesus used agricultural things or things that were common to all nations when he taught. And what was that was common to all nations? Well, here's the picture all kids draw for no matter what nation they're in: a house, land, and a family. And this is exactly how Jesus taught, using things in the field, in trees, fruitfulness, things of a house being built, a mother, a father, children, family, unity. All these things are examples of how Jesus taught because he knew everyone could relate to those things. Now let's look at some of the hallmarks of Hebrew. Hebrew is different from Western thinking and from Greek thinking. Hebrew is concrete. In other words, if you say something like love, in our language, it could mean anything to 10 different people. It's abstract. You can't grab love. But in Hebrew, it has a concrete meaning. It's a verbal form that then describes what it's doing, and then it's given a name. And that's the abstract noun. And that's what Greek does, where Hebrew will give you what the verb is. It's a function, not a form, a format. It's cyclical. It teaches in cycles. And then Greek and Western thinking is all of our charts are linear. Okay, this happened way back here, and then this happened then, and then this happened. But in Hebrew culture, all the teaching is cyclical. What has gone before us will repeat itself over and over and over in every generation and every culture. Then we do inductive study. You know, what's right here and now, where Hebrew looks at the whole scripture and looks for that meaning, and then puts it into an eternal perspective or a spiritual perspective, which is very different from Western thinking. Greeks and Western thinking think of gods as those who are up in the high mountains or high heavens or in the deep sea, all the different gods as judging us. So they tried to please all these gods. However, Hebrew is different because the God of the Hebrews is like a father, one who teaches, or a groom, one who protects and provides. So this is the difference. And then godly wisdom, hearing what God has to say, versus man's knowledge, which uses his own wisdom and what his eyes want, versus what God tells him through what God's heart wants in you. And then this is where all religion, I call dead religion, is on this side. And relationships, that's what the Bible's all about. That's what Hebrew's all about. So that's why they're the culture of unity. And it's not about me, it's always about we in the Hebrew culture. In American culture, it's all about me, right? Selfies, self-realization, where Hebrew is all about the we, not the me. So look at the difference. All right. Warning, at first, Hebrew is confusing. I already warned you about that. It's I before flee, except after see. And you're like, huh? That's how it's going to feel as you learn this language. But over time, it'll get better. I put a short video in here that I'm not going to go into here in this particular video today. But when I send you this, you can click on it and it's going to take you to YouTube, and you're going to see that this then takes you to a wonderful video telling you how the alphabet came about online. And so then you can go to YouTube and look at it here. So let's move on. This is one of the handouts that I gave you in the first week for those who were just watching online and you want to have these forms. You can email me, and I will be happy to send you some of these forms. No charge. I'll send them via email. But today we're just going to learn the first 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. We're going to learn Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and Dalet. And so I'm going to give you 3 charts in your binders. I may just send just this one. I haven't decided yet, but there are 3 charts you can refer to, and each one looks slightly different. But I want to show you that each letter in Hebrew has a function of 4 different things. So each letter, like the first one is Aleph, that's its name, but it has an ancient symbol. It has a meaning, like Aleph is a word as well as a letter. And then it has a number. So look at 4 things for each letter. And this is why you don't want to change one letter in the Bible, because you change one letter and it can be the opposite meaning. And this is what I've come to discover and love and appreciate. Here's the other chart where it shows you these 4 things that I just named. And if you want to pause the video here and take a screenshot of this, if I don't send it to you, then you can. Here's what the modern Hebrew Aleph looks like. Here's its name. The ancient symbol was an ox, and the meaning is a nuance of strength or leadership or something that's first. So words that have this in it will have a nuance of something with strength, positive or negative. So you can go through and look at each of these on your own. Then originally, there were 22 consonants, and this is what it looked like. Hebrew reading from right to left looked like this. This is Genesis 1:1. And then later, the Masoretes added what they called vowel points, or nikud, which are lines and dots, to these same consonants so that future generations would know how to pronounce them. So just remember, lines and dots tell you how to pronounce each one of these letters. And we'll get into that more in just a minute. So this is an example of the one with the lines and dots, and this is those that were the earlier writings without the Masoretic vowel pointing. The 7 Hebrew letters traditionally that are crowned look like this. It's interesting that there's 7 of them. They're called tagin in a kosher Hebrew scroll. Did you know Hebrew scrolls are kosher or unkosher? If they have a mistake, they're unkosher. But anyway, these are the 7 letters that they actually put little crowns on. And so I'm breaking it down to show you that there's different fonts in Hebrew. So when you're online and you see letters that look different, and you're like, that's not how Rebecca showed me the Aleph is supposed to look. That's because the Hebrew letters have different fonts. Some are dressed up and some are very stick-like that look like children's scribble. Others are very elaborate like this. And I show you that this is what a tittle looks like. It's like a little flame on the fancy font. And then here's what the crowns look like, the tagin. And then this is the jot. It's the yod, the tiniest letter. So this is what, the scripture says, don't change a jot or a tittle. That's because each one of these is so precious to the Lord. He said, don't change anything. You're going to mess it up. All right. Are all of you like a deer in headlights? I always pause here and say, okay, now remember, you only have to learn 4 letters today and just 2 vowel points. So that's only 6 things for 1 week. And that's nothing, right? I figure it this way. You can teach a preschooler 4 letters of the A, B, C, and D, right? In a week. So look at yourself like a child in preschool, and you're going to learn A, B, C, and D today. All right. So let's move on. Normally in class, this is where I would give people a little break, but let's move on. Each Hebrew letter is called an ot, and it's written this way in Hebrew. Interesting, this is the first and last letter of the entire alphabet. It starts with this letter, the aleph, and it ends with the tav. So an ot is a sign in Hebrew. So each letter is a signature sign of something. That's why you don't want to change the letters. So when you see God gave somebody a sign in Judaism is something that only God can do. It's a miraculous ot. So I always joke and say in the morning I get up and have my oatmeal because it's pronounced like oat. So Jesus said, what? I'm the first, just like the first letter, and the last, the beginning and the end. In other words, from beginning to end, the whole alphabet was used to speak the universe into being. This is what the sages of old teach. And it's so beautiful. They call it the building blocks of all things. So I always say, Hebrew, what other language is most like Hebrew? Well, the periodic table is most like Hebrew, but we'll get into that later. I don't want to confuse you. So here's the prayer that said, prior to you ever writing 1 Hebrew letter, this is what they pray. Here it is in blue. It says, Baruch hamelamed et yadi lesefer et haotiot. And it means, blessed is the one who's taught my hand to scribe each letter. So I broke it down for you here. You could say that prayer real quick before you actually practice drawing your letters. So in class, I'm going to show you how to draw each one. And I have fun little helpful hints. I have a whole handout for that, how I teach these letters so you can remember how to write them. So as I go, I'm going to be showing you these as a teaching tool. So let's start with the aleph. I already said that the aleph is a symbol of the ox. And I give you the linguistic of what it's called. There's different linguistic names for each letter based on where they are in the mouth. If you were a speech pathologist, you would know this. This is called a guttural because it's in the throat. It's a silent letter. There's only two letters that are silent. The first one, and then the letter ion, and you'll learn that later. But you only can pronounce them once you get those dots or lines. You don't know if it's an A, E, I, O, or U. So Aleph is the first one, and it implies strength or being first. Aleph is number one. Now, I always draw on the board. I remember how to do this because I draw a little face on this thing, and I pretend like this is a slide. And the little face is a guy named Al with an A. Al goes all the way down the slide, and then he looks back and smiles. So on that sheet that says helpful hints, Aleph is Al going all the way. So this letter reminds me of the A, or the first letter, which is silent. Al goes all the way down. Okay, that's the first one. Let's look at the bet. Bet and vet, two different letters actually. One is the B, and the one without the dot is actually a V sound. They look alike except for the dot. The symbol of the bet is a house or a tent. Why? Because bet means house or tent or home. That's what a beit is in Hebrew. So see, it's four things. Its symbol is a house. It's called a labial because you use your lips, ba, 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 and va, va, va. And it means a house or a tent. It's also a preposition. When you see it at the beginning of another verb, it means to go into. And it's number two. And the two shall become one. I like that because if you put the aleph and the bet together, it becomes father of. And that's where we become one with the Father. See how beautiful this language is? All right, the memory tool is, I say, pretend this is a house with a back porch. It sticks out a little bit beyond this, this what looks like a square C, backwards C. So I say a bet is like a boy in a house with a back porch. A boy in a house with a back porch. So when I see this letter, I think B, boy, boy with a back porch. But if there's no boy and he's vanished, then I know it's a V sound instead of a B. It's a vet instead of a bet. Okay, that's the second one. So see how easy this is? Third letter, Gimel. And Gimel is our G in our language, just as bet was the B in our language. And its ancient symbol was like a foot or upside down foot. It's called a guttural. And its nuance, it means, Gimel means to walk or a foot. It also means a reward. And interesting that it's the word, Gimel is the word for camel, because a camel walks and takes you to your destiny, and it's full of water, and it sustains you on your trip. So that's where it gets its name. What is its function? And then I'll give it a name. Remember I said how Hebrew was so different from Western thinking? What does it do? And then I'll give it a name. Oh, well, it walks and it's full of water and it rewards us because it gets us to our destiny. So, I'm going to call that walking thing a camel. And that's where we get the name. So here's your memory tool. It looks like a person who's getting up and he's running. See, there's a gap. So he's getting up, going with a gap in the letter. So that's what I remember, G sound. Get up and go with a gap. So when I look at that, I think, oh, that's the G. Get up, go, and it has a gap. So that's the Gimel. And then the last letter you're going to learn is the Dalet, or D in English. And this was a tent door, like a flap. You flip it up and go in the door. And it's called a dental because it uses your teeth, d, 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 your tongue against your teeth. The nuance is it's a door, or to enter, or to swing like a pendulum. It's number 4 because it's the 4th letter. And here's how I remember this one. It's half a door, but if you look at it carefully, you can't really see it here, but it comes out a little beyond that downward sign. If I had a blackboard here in class, I always show you the subtlety of this. It goes out beyond this downward portion here. And so I say it has a dingle dangle. So it's a half a door with a dingle dangle, and I circle the dingle dangle. So now when I see that, I think of door, dingle dangle, and I go, oh, that's the Dalet, which means door. Okay, I'll pause. I know it's a lot. But see, you're only going to say, oh, Al goes all the way down. That's the Aleph. B is Bet, and so it's a boy in a house with a back porch. Gimel is get up and go with a gap. And then Dalet is, oh yeah, it's half a door with a dingle dangle. And that's your 4 simple letters. Now, you're going to learn 2 vowels this week. Remember I said the vowels were called nikud. The plural is nikudot. This is what the Masoretes called vowel pointing. And it's a series of lines and dots. So today, week 1, we're going to learn the vowel A and E. So let's go through that slide and show you this one. Now you say the consonant first and then the vowel after it. So let me give you an example. Let's take the Bet. Remember the boy with the back porch, and it's got the boy inside, so it's B. If you look at the A vowel, the vowel pointing looks like a small T underneath, and it's pronounced ah as in father. The other line is straight across. It's also an A, but it has a slightly different sound. Now, for all practical purposes, anything with lines is the A, whether it's got the sound ah or ah. I give you the subtlety here, but actually, when you're doing homework, when you see any lines, you're thinking, oh, that's an A. So this is ba sound. Ba, ah. See? Ba, ah. Here's the small T as in father. Now the E, it looks like dots. So anytime you see dots underneath together, more than one dot, it's going to be a vowel called E. And when there's 2 dots, it's A as in they. It's an EY sound. A as in they, E-Y. If it has 3 dots, it's as in better. But all you need to know if you see dots is it's a form of the E vowel. So lines are A's, multiple dots are E's. That's all you have to think about right now. So that's as simple as I can make it. And if you're sitting with me in class, we do a lot more practice on the board, but I hope this is good enough and you enjoyed learning this today. Now, online, you can go to the Aleph Bet song, and it helps you remember the sequence. And it's a fun song. I'm going to play it here so that you can hear it and sing along. And this is how you learn your letters. Aleph, Bet, Vet. Remember we said without the dot, it becomes a V instead of a B. This is where you get Av for father, the first and second one, or Abba for father. Gimel, you learned today, and Dalet. So you learned the first 4 letters today, even though these 2 look like 2. All right, so let's listen to the song, and you can practice this song. I suggest you sing it every day. So just pull it up in the morning when you're doing your studying and you're practicing writing your letters. Here's the song. I'm going to play it here, and we'll practice singing it together. I'm going to go to YouTube. And by the way, when you do go to YouTube, just know that you can slow the song down. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute, as soon as it comes in. I'm going to turn up the sound so that you can hear it. Okay, so he sings it kind of fast. So you can go down here on this little wheel under settings and see it says playback speed. It's on normal, but you can turn it down to about 75%, 0.75 or 7.6, and it slows it way down. So let me show you what it sounds like in the speed if you don't adjust it. Here's how fast it goes. I suggest you pull out your chart and read along and practice your letters as he's singing. So here you go.
Aleph, Bet, Bet, Aleph, Bet, Aleph, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Tet,
Vav, Zayin, Tet, Tet,
Yud,
Zayin, Zayin, Hey, Hey,
Tzadik, Ufresh,
Tzadik,
Ufresh, Shin, Sin, Tav. Let's do it again. Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Bet, Tet, Tav, Zayin, Hey, Hey.
You say it.
Tzadik, Ufresh, Shin, Sin, Tav. All right, now this time you go first.
Slow it down. Now listen to the difference.
Aleph,
Bet.
Dalet, Hey.
See, so you can slow it down. I think you got the whole picture here. So I'm going to quit here and stop this recording. And I hope you enjoyed singing that with me. And I'm going to get out of this now. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time for week 2. And we'll learn 3 or 4 more letters. And by your 3rd week, you'll have learned all your vowel points and half of your letters. So join me again for week 2 of Hooked on Hebrew. Thanks for joining me, and don't forget to practice your 4 letters. I have homework also. If you're interested in doing some practice sheets, email me, rjlevis@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send you the practice sheets or homework. It takes you about 5-10 minutes. It's nothing. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.